Feeding or rocking your baby to sleep is the number one reason why they are still waking up overnight. And it doesn't actually have to do with them being hungry. So if you haven't watched any of my other videos, hi, I'm Jensine. I'm a pediatric sleep consultant. I am a mom of 3 and I work with families to help you find your ideal sleep situation in real life. So today we're going to be talking about the feeding and rocking trap that every parent gets into when they're trying to get their newborn to sleep. But the problem is that it continues after their child is a newborn, so they never learn an actual way to help themselves get to sleep because you're doing all the work for them. So the first piece of advice that I have is that we have to identify what their actual sleep prop is. Is it that you are rocking them all the way to sleep, and that's how, once they're asleep in your arms, you transfer them into the crib? Is it that you're feeding them to sleep and you keep offering ounces, offering bottles, offering things for them to suck and swallow, for them to actually get all the way to sleep, and then transferring them? Maybe you're rocking or driving or bouncing on a ball for them to sleep. There's so many different sleep props that children have, but the very first thing is we have to identify what is that. What is the one thing I'm doing in order to get my baby to sleep? And that is a sleep prop. Some children have independent sleep props where they suck on their own thumb, they can use their pacifier independently, and that is fine because they're using it independently. The trouble comes when they need something that can't be done independently. They need someone else to rock them. They need someone else to hold a bottle or provide a bottle. They can't get up and make their own, so you need someone else to provide that feed for them. So once we've identified what that sleep prop is, we then move into step 2. And that is to get all caregivers on board that we actually want to make a change and have a plan as to how to make that change. If both or all caregivers aren't on board, then this isn't going to work. For us, we have 3 children, like I said, and for my oldest son, my husband and I were not on the same page, but we didn't know that we actually weren't on the same page. I was trying to put our son down to sleep independently. I would do our full routine, put him into the crib, walk out, and he would cry most of the time, pretty hardcore, and I couldn't figure out why he wasn't getting it because I was doing the same thing every single time. But I found out later on that my husband was rocking him most of the way to sleep and then transferring him into the crib. So we thought we were on the same page. We thought we were doing the same thing, but because we weren't each in the room when the other one was doing their routines, we didn't know that things were drastically different. So the most important thing is to make sure that this is enough of a problem for both parents, for both caregivers, for all caregivers, that if it's working for one person but it's not working for another, that still means that something needs to change. So how can we come together and make sure that everyone is feeling good about the situation? I work with a lot of families one-to-one that one parent doesn't mind the co-sleeping, doesn't mind the rocking or holding them to sleep, but for the other parent, they're not loving having to share their bed with their spouse and with a baby. They're not loving that it's taking them hours and hours and hours to do bedtime when their other significant other isn't there to do bedtime for them. So we need to come together and find a way to make this work in an actual step-by-step plan to make this happen. So now is when I'm going to point you to the pinned video on my page, because that is going to give you the steps to a plan in order to be able to help your child learn how to fall asleep independently without crying it out. So if you haven't been to the pinned video on my page, then I'm going to encourage you to pause this, go back there, and you're going to watch that through, because it's going to walk you through how to help your child fall asleep independently without crying it out. As a mom of 3, cry it out was not something I could do with any of my children. So I can't ask you to do something that I couldn't do myself. So if that's really important to you, you know that you need the sleep. This is not a sustainable approach for anyone, but you also know that cry it out just doesn't feel right in your heart. And we all have those feelings in our heart and we don't want to ignore them. But you're feeling conflicted. I don't want to cry it out, but I know we need sleep. There is a way to get good sleep without having to do cry it out. So again, go back to that pinned video and you'll get all the information. So my last piece of advice, which is probably the best piece of advice, is that make sure that your baby is falling asleep within minutes of you want them to be able to get their your evening back. You want to be able to make sure that your baby is able to go into the crib, you can walk away and have your entire evening. And what would you do with that evening? Take a second, pause this video. What would you do that you can't do right now? You could watch an entire show on Netflix, knowing that you won't be interrupted by your baby waking up and crying. You can maybe get some extra work done and get that promotion that you've been looking for. Maybe you can connect with some friends. You can call or text someone that you haven't been able to talk to because life has been so hectic. And by the time you finally get your child down, then you're just too tapped out. You don't have any energy left to do anything. So that last piece of advice and your first step to being able to move away from the feeding and the rocking is to keep the lights on as you're doing your full bedtime routine. Usually when the lights go off and the sound machine goes on, it's really a symbol to your child like, okay, this is the time to sleep. Everything is set up perfectly, so now is the time to fall asleep. But we want them to know the feeding is not actually to fall asleep. The rocking is not actually to fall asleep. It's to provide some comfort and to get you closer to that goal, but I'm just helping you out. I'm setting the scene. I'm not actually doing the work for you. So if you have been turning off the lights, turning the sound machine on before you do a feed, before you rock your child, don't do that anymore. Keep the lights on, keep the sound machine off. Don't actually do those things until after you put them into the crib or on your way to put them into the crib. Still be holding them, but turn the lights off, turn the sound machine on, then right away put them in. That's gonna signal now is the time to fall asleep. So again, if you want more of a step-by-step, what to do before, what to do after they go into their crib, go back to that pinned video because it's gonna give you more information on exactly what to do and how to find those exact steps. But in this video, this is going to be a really great start to first identify what the sleep prep is, then get all caregivers on board and have a plan, and then keep the lights on to make sure that you're not signaling to your child it's time to fall asleep and a time that we actually don't want them to fall asleep. So if you want some more support, there's tons more videos on my page. Again, I can't stress enough, go to that pinned video for more information on exactly how to help your child fall asleep without crying it out. And I'll see you over there.